You know, every single day, financial institutions are navigating a sea of invisible risks. A sudden market crash, a surprise cyber attack, an unexpected turn in the economy. Really, any one of these things can flip a great year into a total disaster. So how do they possibly prepare for a storm they can't even see coming? Well, that's the core question of financial risk management, and we're about to break it all down.
All right, so here's what we're going to tackle. First, we'll dive into the basic problem of uncertainty itself. Then, we'll look at a really cute tool called Value at Risk, or VAR. We'll also get into how companies keep their costs in check, see how all these tools actually work together in the real world, and finally, we'll look past the numbers at the real art of balancing risk.
You know, when you really boil it down, the entire world of finance is built on one simple truth. The future is always uncertain. For any company out there, whether it's a huge global bank or your local insurance provider, managing the financial hit from these unpredictable events isn't just a smart move, it's absolutely essential for survival.
And look, these threats can come from anywhere. We're not just talking about the stock market. A major financial shock could be a massive hurricane, a global pandemic, or a huge data breach that brings a company to its knees. These aren't just abstract ideas to worry about. They are real, measurable risks that have devastating financial consequences. So this all leads to the million-dollar question, right? If you can't know for sure what's going to happen, how on earth can you measure the risk? How do you walk into a boardroom and tell your investors or the regulators how much money you could realistically lose? This one question is what drives the entire field of financial risk management.
To even begin to answer that question, you need a tool that can take all that uncertainty and turn it into a number. And one of the most common tools for doing exactly that is called Value at Risk. You'll hear it called VAR. It's basically a way of putting a specific dollar or pound figure on your potential losses.
Okay, so the key thing to get about VAR is that it's a statistical measure. It's not a crystal ball. It uses a whole bunch of historical data and probability to estimate a potential loss, not to predict a certain one. It's trying to answer the question, okay, under normal circumstances, what's the most we could expect to lose?
Honestly, the best way to think about this is like a weather forecast. You know, the forecast might say there's a 10% chance of rain. That doesn't mean it definitely won't rain, just that it's not very likely. VAR works the same way. It gives you the odds. It might say there's a 99% chance your losses won't go past a certain number. But it's also admitting there's that 1% chance they could be way, way worse.
Okay, let's make this real. This number here could represent a 95% one-year VAR of £4.5 million on a portfolio worth $100 million. So what does that actually tell a risk manager? It means they can feel 95% confident that their losses over the next year are not going to be more than $4.5 million. It gives them a single, solid number to help them get a handle on their risk.
But, you know, getting a handle on those big external risks with tools like VAR, that's really only half the story. Companies also have to manage their costs from the inside. And a huge part of that is understanding and controlling what we call variable expenses. Those are the costs that go up or down depending on how much business you're actually doing.
And this difference is just fundamental to controlling your costs. Think about it. Fixed expenses, like the rent on your office building, you have to pay them no matter what. They're locked in. But variable expenses are directly tied to your activity. If you sell more stuff, your commission costs go up. If you're an insurer and you handle more claims, your processing costs rise. And that's where companies have a lot more direct control.
Let's take an insurance company, for instance. Paying an agent a commission for selling a new policy, that's a classic variable expense. The company only incurs that cost because they made a sale. So by managing these kinds of costs, maybe negotiating better commission deals or finding more efficient ways to handle claims, a company can directly boost its bottom line.
All right, so now we've got these two big ideas on the table. A way to measure the outside risks with VAR and a way to manage the inside costs. So let's see how they fit into the bigger picture, the actual toolkit that companies use to make huge decisions every single day.
And here's the thing, using these tools isn't a one-and-done kind of deal. It's a constant cycle. A company is always identifying new risks, measuring them with tools like VAR, and then figuring out how to control them or pay for them. And after all that, they have to monitor the results, and then the whole process just starts over again. It's this dynamic, ongoing loop of adaptation. And what's so powerful about this whole toolkit is just how specific the solutions are for each type of risk. If an insurance company is worried about a catastrophic event leading to a ton of claims, they use something called reinsurance to pass some of that risk to someone else. If costs are spiraling out of control, they use strict expense controls, targeting those variable expenses we were just talking about. For every problem, there's a specific tool.
And this is really where it all clicks together. Knowing your VAR helps you figure out exactly how much cash you need to keep in reserve, just in case things go bad. And understanding your variable expenses helps you price your products so they're competitive, but you're still making a profit. Together, these two concepts are the foundation for a really stable financial strategy.
But, and this is super important, we have to remember that risk management isn't just about crunching numbers in some fancy model. No model is perfect. Every single tool has its blind spots, and this is where human judgment and experience become every bit as important as the math.
This quote right here, it gets straight to the heart of VAR's biggest weakness. Remember our financial weather forecast? VAR tells you there's that 1% chance of a really bad day. What it doesn't tell you is how bad that day could be. That 1% event is what we call the tail, and it could be a small disaster, or it could be a storm that wipes the company off the map. VAR just can't tell the difference.
So, at the end of the day, this is what it's all about. Effective risk management isn't about trying to eliminate all risk. I mean, taking calculated risks is how companies make money and grow. The real art is in striking the right balance, truly understanding the risks you're taking, managing your costs, and making sure the potential reward is actually worth it.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. We build these incredibly sophisticated models and complex toolkits to protect ourselves from all this uncertainty. But if every single one of those models has a weakness, a blind spot, and that dangerous tail, it really makes you wonder, what does true financial security really cost? And can we ever fully achieve it?